You're listening to the Reality of It All podcast, candid conversations about today's hot topics. And now here's your host, Tracy Osborne. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are talking about how to trust that niggle, that nagging little feeling you get inside, also known as your gut instincts. So with me today is Candice Smiley, and she is going to help us learn how to trust our guts. So Candice, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Tracy. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am thrilled to have you. This is a fun conversation. It's something that I've learned long ago was to trust my gut. And I learned it in relation to business, but I've been able to apply it to everything else. And one thing that I've learned is that my gut is almost never wrong.
I have to agree wholeheartedly. And I laugh because, I could have avoided so much heartache, financial ruin. I could have avoided a lot of really negative things if I just trusted myself. Mm-hmm. And that's really, for me, why I like talking about trusting the niggle and telling the truth. And the niggle, I say it, people like the gut instinct. I'm like, yes, but it's usually when it shows up, it's highly annoying. And so niggle, I appreciate the sound of that word because it's usually an inconvenient truth, right, that we know. And we don't usually, or sometimes, we don't often have a logical reason for why we're feeling that way. And I think that's one of the reasons why, especially as women, we don't trust it. Because we're like, the appearances is that there's nothing wrong. It looks good on paper. He's so nice to me. That sort of thing. And yet our gut is like, whoa, and we don't really understand that. And so, if we look at my life, and everybody reads my bio, it's a story of sort of, it's trauma from here to there. And usually I assumed most people were good like me, right? Like the parents I was raised with. I was really blessed to have a really great childhood. I grew up very much in a sheltered space. It was wonderful. And then wham, at 17, I was sexually assaulted by a boyfriend. And to be honest, if I'm really honest with myself, before I met him, because we met when I was overseas on a trip, and then he came to visit. And to be honest, when he said he was coming to visit, there was something in me that was it was fear. And I remember thinking, where's this coming from? And I thought it was nerves, right? I had never been kissed before. Right. So I was like, well, maybe I'm just nervous about the whole thing, right? Awkward as, AF. And no, that wasn't the case. Within 8 hours of him arriving, right, I'd been sexually assaulted and I didn't even have the words to describe what had happened, much less really describe it. And I think, we blame ourselves, right? We use shame and guilt. I certainly did for years.
Absolutely.
Because I felt like I was saying I knew better, right? And so I think for the women who are listening, if you're sitting there thinking, well, I knew better, I'm like, yeah, that's the niggle, which you ignored.
Yep.
And now you're mad at yourself for ignoring.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's like, kicking myself in the head. I should have listened to myself. I should have listened to my gut.
Right.
That voice was telling me. And how many stories, do you hear about people who I listened to my gut. It was just nagging at me. So I didn't get on that plane. I didn't get in that car. I didn't go on that trip. Yep. And they avoided something major, because of it. And that voice, it's there for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
totally.
Yeah.
And so I'm passionate about teaching women to listen to that because, of course, it became harder and harder to listen to it. I don't know if I was ever taught to listen to that still small voice, right? I mean, I heard the Pinocchio, right? Always let your conscience be your guide. And so it was there in a subtle way, but never in a great seriousness where somebody said, hey, if your gut feels like it's off, it is. Question it later, figure it out later. It's much easier to say, hey, I'm sorry, I just felt uncomfortable. Because I wish I had learned how to communicate that earlier on, because you're right. As you said in the beginning, you'd learn to trust the niggle in the business, which then you apply into your personal life. And so I would say the same thing happened for me. I wasn't comfortable enough to say I was uncomfortable entering into some business deals. I had partners who left me holding the bag, financially, both personal and in business. I had friends who used guilt and gossip. And that's a really big language of the world. Certainly for women, we use guilt and gossip. It doesn't sound like much, and we've learned to hear it and accept it. But when somebody says, well, I was waiting for you, that's guilt language, right? It's subtle, it's abusive, it's passive, rather than saying, hey, one of my core values is being on time. And I know she were late today. And so in the future, I really love it. I would experience it. We don't say that. But what we say is, well, I was waiting for you.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that.
Right? We are. And I'm only sensitive to it because I've been, abused and manipulated and gaslit for so long that even now I'm in a wonderful relationship. We just had a baby 3 months ago.
Oh,
and the other day he came in and he said, well, I was just expecting to do this today. And I said, guilt language. Right. Which for me, it's me saying I'm triggered right now. Right. And so I put it on the table, own my poop. And then he said, you're right. I am feeling frustrated because I feel like we didn't make my things a priority and you got sucked into what you were doing. And so I feel disrespected right now. And I said, that I can own. I'm sorry. I will get clear. You know what I mean? It just changes from you feeling under someone to you feeling empowered. And so I know these are kind of high things we need to talk about, but I feel like when we feel that inside, sometimes the niggle feels uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels like that, we want to shrink. Right. And I know women are feeling me right now. Anytime shame or guilt is activated, it's probably because your niggle's going off. You need to stand up for yourself. And we need to really be talking about this so that we can learn the language to empower ourselves and be able to listen to the niggle.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you've got me thinking, gosh, what else am I saying that's passive aggressive and I don't mean it? I mean, because for me, one of my core values is being on time too. I am anal about being on time, and my oldest daughter is anal about being not on time. So we tease her relentlessly about it. We'll make plans and we'll specify a time and we'll say, well, is that our time or is that her time?
Yes.
And we're not doing it in a, we're not meaning to be, mean or, anything like that. But now I'm thinking, God, am I, gaslighting my own kid? I don't want to.
Well, and I don't want to, pin you down, but I know that was my problem for years. I was always late. And that problem disappeared when I was finally honest with what was actually going on with me and dealing with the trauma. And when I realized that I'm late to things when I don't want to go to them or I'm out of integrity in some area of my life. So the anxiety about making a decision, it can be as simple as, so I'm still going through a divorce with my daughter's dad. And if I've had to deal with him that day, it's still challenging. There's still some triggers, right? There's some old neural pathways that I have yet to transmit into positivity. Yep. And I'll be late to something because I was there. And I would say, well, I had to deal with this today. And then I would sort of blame rather than saying, I find it really challenging to feel confident and empowered and in control of my day when I have to interact with this human being because of the previous pathways. So I've learned to sort of say that, like, hey, this is post, a divorce meeting. I might be a little bit late. I struggle a little bit after those events to sort of find my own center. And so I book therapy after those things. I make sure I don't book something immediately. So I have 2 hours to peace out and go crawl into bed if I need to and find myself. Yeah. And so, maybe with your daughter, maybe it's an opportunity to really talk about what's going on, maybe under the surface, because I know that when I'm on plan and on purpose, the girl who is always late is usually early and people are like, you mean you've been here for 10 minutes? I'm like, oh yeah, there's no poop in my life right now. So why would I have any reason to not be on time? Right? Or if I am, because I've got 2 kids under 7, I'll message you and say, I'm going to be 5 minutes late. And that's because we had a diaper blowout, but I'm on my way.
Right.
Right. And so it's much easier for people to now manage things that were a challenge for me because I stepped up and said, hey, I'm actually uncomfortable about something going on in my life. And so I'm late, not because of that. I'm late because I'm stressing about this.
That's interesting. And, and you talk about, being late because something about the event or whatever makes you uncomfortable. Yep. And I have turned down or canceled last minute, many times going to a friend's house or to an event or something like that. I'm like, I don't know what it is, but something inside me is saying, don't go.
Yeah.
It may be nothing may happen at all, but there is something telling me not to go. So I'm going to stay home.
Good.
And if they really need an explanation, I'll just say my anxiety's high today,
right.
If they don't understand the other reason, it's just my anxiety has kicked into high gear and I'm not going anywhere. And that's because I've learned to listen and to trust. Like you, I've entered into bad business deals. I have taken on, bad clients because they were, good money, but they were great money, but my instincts are, my little voice is going, no, red flag. And I'm just like, no, look at the money, dollar sign.
Look at the money. Yes.
And, and regretted it. I had one client who, that's exactly what happened. And she's really the one that I really learned to listen to my voice. Because it was screaming.
There's some doozies, right?
Bullhorn going, no. And I'm like,
I know. I hear you.
She was very emotionally abusive. And she triggered my PTSD from, my past. And it was something I thought I had under control. And next thing I knew, I was questioning everything I did.
Everything,
right? It happens I was fast. Like, what am I doing? I can't be doing this. Why am I a virtual assistant? Why am I a business manager? Why am I doing, obviously I'm stupid. And it got to the point where I couldn't open my inbox. If I opened my email, I was literally physically sick.
Right?
Because of it.
And these are the things I wish more women would listen to. Like, have the courage. It's hard to end those relationships, as I'm sure you've experienced.
Oh, yeah.
But it's equally as hard to continue on this path. And I talk about that all the time when people say, well, you left this. And I'm like, yeah, but I was choosing my heart. I chose to stand in my own integrity and say, this doesn't work for me. I had a client a couple months ago who said, well, I'll work with you, but don't leave me hanging. And I was like, that's guilt language, right? And so many people would just say, no. And it's an assumption, but it's like those hooks, zip in. And I said, with all due respect, we're going to work together on 30 days and we'll see where we're at. I don't want to leave you hanging. I'll empower you if I decide this doesn't work for me. And most people are usually shocked that I would say that. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to leave you hanging because I have integrity. However, if this isn't a good fit for me, I will tell you immediately, and vice versa.
Right. And, it sounds to me too, something like that, don't leave me hanging. That also sounds like a trauma response.
Yep. Big time.
That person has obviously been let down at least once, big time, in order to feel that way. So it's fantastic that you have your voice and you're not afraid to use it because
I'm learning. Believe me, sometimes it shakes when I speak, but I've been learning. I'll be late for everything this week if I don't speak up right now.
Exactly. I hear you. I've got to the point too where I'm just like, nah. No, my gut says no. So we're going to go with that. Well, why? I don't know. I have no answer for that. I don't care. My gut says no. That's why. And it hasn't steered me wrong. Like I said, almost, I can't think of a single time where I listened to my gut instincts and it was wrong.
Yep. I agree. Even if, nothing ended up happening, it's an opportunity to see who the other person is. And that's what I think is the most interesting is, because I tell people, on my podcast, the tagline is trust the niggle and then tell the truth, which isn't about telling the truth to the world. Right. So,
Right.
Similar to, the Brene Brown with the shame, not everybody deserves your truth, to be completely honest with you. Some of those things need to be tucked up deep inside and shared with maybe only a close few. But you can't live in integrity and you can't feel the niggle to the level that you need to be constantly course correcting and making sure you're creating an ideal life for yourself. If you don't tell yourself the truth of what is, and that's the hardest part, to look yourself in the eye and go, I knew better. I love you, self. And now I have to course correct. Right. And that's going to suck. Well, I've always found a ton of relief in terms of telling myself that. And it took me years to, pony up and be honest with myself.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I do, now I feel like, well, if I'm really honest, I'm not happy about this either. And if I'm really honest, I'm actually not happy about this. And if I'm really honest, darn it, I'm not happy about that. And it's kind of like, when you do a why exercise and you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you find the real why. I feel like that's with the niggle. I'm like, oh, that's niggling and that's niggling and this is niggling and this is niggling. Oh, shoot. That's the actual thing where I stepped out of integrity. And then all of these other ones are because I was making a decision in the moment, or I wasn't tuned in, tapped in, turned on, whatever it is. And if I can fix that one, the other ones will just domino effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I found was tough was, like you said, to learn to trust that voice, but also, to be honest with yourself. So, let's go down the relationship path for a second. I think most of us have had at least one relationship where, we started dating somebody, the red flags are just like banging us in the face. That voice is, just screaming at the top of its lungs, run. And we're like, no, it's, it's new.
What he's cute. He has six packs abs.
Exactly. I can change him.
He makes good money.
Good money. Yes. He's great in bed. He's good with my kids.
Oh yeah. The great in bed one's a challenge.
We come up with all kinds of reasoning and excuses to ignore that voice. And what we're really doing is just not being honest with ourselves.
Yep.
Why are we choosing to ignore this voice? What is the real reason? It's not because he has six-pack abs. We can get those somewhere else.
Those are fun.
They are fun, but we can get those elsewhere, where the voice is going, climbing like a tree. So, really opening up and being honest with yourself. What is this voice trying to tell me? What is myself trying, my conscience, whatever you want to call it, the niggle, trying to tell me? And why am I choosing to ignore it? You have to have those hard conversations with yourself, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what is kind of the catalyst that really got you thinking, okay, it's time to start listening to that voice?
There was a couple. I think that's what's interesting about my stories. It's been 20 years since the original assault, since I started talking about it. And I think that's important that people know that there is no timeline on your healing and when you're comfortable, if you're ever comfortable, to live this out loud.
Yeah.
So that's first and foremost. And there were moments throughout. So, I decided not, to commit suicide and do some self-harm. So that was one wake-up call where I realized that I really did want to live, and I really wanted to live well, and to not be defined by what had happened, right? And sort of, the patterns that I was seeing myself exhibit and continue to attract the same person. So that was one. And then there was when I woke up and found out I was $350,000 in debt because a partner who was a business partner and a lover had left me. Yeah. Me in the country after 4.5 years and multiple cheating, which I discovered post-event. And I knew it. Like, dude admitted to cheating 6 months into the relationship. Ladies, that's a sign. Anyway,
if they're flat out
so,
saying, hello, I'm doing
yeah,
it.
hello. But you know
They're
what? It was a really powerful moment. Okay. So I met one of the women that he cheated on me with. And I remember staring at her thinking, her boobs are not as big as mine. You know, her ass is not as fine. Right. Like, I was like, girl's got nothing on me. Like, right. She wasn't, she wasn't what, Instagram. Okay. Like beautiful in her own right, for sure. But I remember thinking, you had this at home and you went with that.
Right.
Okay. So number one, I realized that if somebody cheats, it really does have nothing to do with you.
Yep.
I acknowledged that the relationship had been poopy for a while. And so, of course, he would be looking for something somewhere else. That would make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, I got to own some of that I probably should have dealt with this more forefront rather than passively, ignoring and denying him, because then he just went looking for what he needed somewhere else. And then I also realized that because it has nothing to do with me, that it has nothing to do with me. And my dumb thing was choosing to be in relationship with that individual where I didn't feel valued, right? Long before the cheating happened. And that was like eye-opening for me. I was like, I'm not even bothered. Like, thank you for this awareness. I needed this to happen because I've entered into relationships in a very different space now. I'm like, look, here's me. You do you. If we work together, great. Okay. So that helped me have a lot more, open conversations. But then of course there's the debt, which was a big wake-up call. And so I really had to define who I was, what I wanted. And sometimes when we go through trauma and we don't listen to the niggle, we forget who we are. And so I remembered who I was. And I was like, I don't roll over and play dead for stuff like this. I will figure out a solution. It'll be hard, but you know what? I know how to work hard. I know how to focus. I know how to plan. And I trust myself. And people get out of this kind of mess all the time, right? So there was another wake-up call. And then there was when my daughter was born, which was a very positive one. But I remember looking at her and thinking, I have got to do better. I've got to, because she's going to duplicate what I've done. She'll choose men like I do. She will love herself like I do. And so I better get my poop in a group. And then finally in 2020, when I had a relationship with a wonderful human being, and realized that I needed to break up with him because it wasn't quite right. We were wonderful on so many levels, but both of us were sort of compromising to be together. So it was like this or better kind of thing. And that was a really powerful moment for me because I realized I was about to break up with somebody who wasn't narcissistic, who wasn't awful to me, who wasn't mean to me. It was a good relationship that wasn't quite as good as it could be. And I was like, wow, have I come into a space where I'm no longer doing this from a trauma place? I'm now doing this from a really healthy place. And it was a great conversation with lots of tears, lots of pain, but we both went, you're right. There's more for us out there and we're better as friends. So how do we get through this painful letting go to be friends? I'm happy to say, we're brilliant friends post because we were able to redefine the relationship and that sort of thing. So there were certainly moments throughout where I had a wake-up call. I realized I needed to trust myself. And in between there, I'm usually surprised, especially in the beginning, we turn off our listening, especially if we've made multitude decisions where we haven't listened, that it can be really hard to hear the voice, right? So if there's somebody listening and she's like, I don't even know which way to go anymore. I don't hear that voice. I'm going, yeah, I know. I was there. You sit there, you listen, and it's silent. It's because you shoved her so far back into the closet. Under all the skeletons, you got to move some of those out of the way first and learn to listen. And it usually is going to come in a quiet way. It'll feel more like relief rather than anything else. So you might think, should I buy this or buy that? And you'd be like, this. Just start to follow that, because at some point you realize, you're tuned in and you just know.
Yeah.
You just know.
Yeah. Oh, I like that description. Absolutely. And a lot of times it's, when you've lost sense of her, you just have to kind of get quiet with yourself and just start have that conversation, meditate or, just quiet your mind and be like, okay, I'm listening. I'm here. What do you have to say? What do you need to tell me? Or journaling, just put pen to paper and let it flow. Don't think about it. Don't worry about what you're writing. You can go back and write it later. Just let it flow. And you'll be amazed at what your inner voice has to tell you.
Wants to tell you.
Yeah.
I think that's the most interesting thing is it's the gentlest, quietest of voices. She's never mean to me. The monkeys are mean. But like the monkey mind, right? That's no fun. But the still quiet voice goes, so you missed it. That's all right.
Yeah.
You're capable. Bet on yourself. You'll figure it out. You'll tell this story someday and it'll help somebody else. Because that stopped me for the longest time, was being afraid of what people would say. And there are still some people, they're on the fringes now, right? I don't actively participate with them, but they remember a different version of me that no longer exists.
Of course.
And when I run into those people that say, oh yes, well, I remember back in the day, and this just happened. I remember back in the day when people used to come to me and tell me how you were always late and you didn't follow through. And I go, that's a very old version of me. That version does not exist anymore. Yeah. That version was too uncomfortable to say, I don't want to attend your networking event. No, I don't want to do that for free. No, I don't want to do this. No, I don't want to do that. No, I'm way too I've overcommitted. No, April's way too busy. I cannot afford to come. No, I don't want to meet with you and drink wine because I really don't want to go out this weekend. That girl didn't exist, but she does now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but I don't drop the ball anymore. And she's like, no, you don't, but you did. And I said, with all due respect, you are reminding me of a person who hasn't existed for over 2 years. And whether she existed yesterday or not, today I'm not being her. So please get with the program and meet the new me. And she's like, right, but history said, and I said, I understand. And I recognize that it's a trauma response and it's hard for people when you change and you grow and you go to the next level. But I have to share it because I know a lot of women, especially ones that are gaslit by well-meaning people, will fall for that. And they'll think you're right. Yesterday I was late. Yesterday I did drop the ball. Yesterday I fell off the wagon. Yesterday I had a drink and I said I wouldn't. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You get the right to decide who you are going to be in the moment, as the moment. It doesn't matter what yesterday was, and you have the right to change your mind. The number of people who get after me for saying, right, but you changed your mind. I'm like, yes, because I'm tuned in, tapped and turned on. And so I said yes to doing something with you. Then I went to bed and I woke up at 4 a.m. with anxiety. And I went, what did I make a decision on that I didn't double check on my gut? And I realized this is out of sync for me. I don't know why. I really want to do it. So I'm calling you to be honest and saying, I realize I can't do it. So I'm going to tell you quickly and I'm going to tell you now. The people who have those same sort of boundaries, who respect your yes is your yes and your no is your no, usually go, okay, well, that changes things, but thanks for letting me know. I appreciate that. Truth and honesty speaks to other truth and honesty. And the ones that go, that's BS and they whatever, it's nothing anyone does is because of you. So you could just stand there and go, that's probably why the Niggle was yelling at me, because you already have an expectation of me, and expectations ruin relationships. So hold your values gently, hold those beliefs, because sometimes they're going to be in conflict with each other. So know which one you need to stand in the moment, and then say thank you and move on.
I love it. Oh my gosh. That is a fantastic way to end. So we're actually out of time. That you couldn't have ended the show any better. So thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Yes, it's definitely reminding me to, make sure I'm still listening to her and to be gentle with myself for sure. And, make sure make sure I am using my outside voice and setting my boundaries and adhering to them. So I hope that the listeners are taking away some of that as well.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Thank you. Listeners, as always, I will have Candice's information in the show notes. If you go to therealityofitall.com and pull up her episode, I will have all her contact information there for you so you can reach out and learn how to trust your niggle. So thank you, as always, for tuning in, and we will talk to you in the next show. That's it for today's show. Thanks for listening. Be sure you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and TikTok.